Hi, everyone. This is Marta. You can find me as Marta Schmarta on Instagram, Ravelry, and Blue Sky.
And I'm Freddie Betty. I can be found on Ravelry and Blue Sky as Freddie Betty, on Instagram as Freddie Betty01, and on Facebook as Betty Kroll.
Now it's time to break the rules with our brief review of Lesson 5, Increases and Decreases in Patty Lyon's Knitting Bag of Tricks, the official workbook, and Chapter 5 in the original Knitting Bag of Tricks book.
Yeah, Patty starts this chapter 5 by referencing Picasso's quote, "Learn the rules like a pro so you can break them like an artist." She then lists the universal rules of knitting, the universal rules of slipping, then describes the mechanics behind a plethora of decreases. We have cross-reference guide for this lesson that can be accessed via the Unraveling Podcast Ravelry and Facebook chat groups.
A link to the Lesson 5 cross-reference guide can be accessed via this CAL's information doc, which can be accessed by visiting unravelingpodcast.com. Lesson 5 in the workbook begins with working these decreases on swatch number 6. Many of these decreases are familiar to us, but have improved instructions to make them tidier. I was happy to see the One Move SSK because it's the SSK I've used for years. If you listeners haven't tried it, you really should. What decreases did you enjoy, Betty?
I enjoyed learning the tidier center double decrease and knit 3 together decreases. Next, Chapter 5 in the original book explains the mechanics behind many increases, improved ways to work them, and what increases are suited for various situations. Patty divides these increases into 3 classes. Increases between 2 stitches, such as a yarn over or make 1. Increases into a stitch, such as the KFB, which is knit front and back, and increases into the row below, such as a lifted increase.
Lesson 5 in the workbook continues with working these increases on swatch number 6, starting with yarn overs. Patty described traditional yarn overs, backwards yarn overs, how to work them into knit and purl stitches, and how to decide which yarn over to use so all your holes are the same size and are symmetrical.
This was my favorite part of Lesson 4. Knowing that yarn overs could be worked different ways would have saved me so much time when I started lace knitting. Most lace patterns do not tell you how to work the yarn overs so their appearance will be symmetrical. The increase between 2 stitches discussion finishes with make ones, E-loops, and twisted yarn overs. I never heard of E-loops before. They were named after Elizabeth Zimmerman, and the technique is the same as the backwards loop cast on.
The increase discussion continued with types of increases that are made into a stitch. The most commonly used one is the KFB, or knit front and back of the loop. Many love this increase because it can be stacked every other row without lifting up the row or changing the tension of a running thread. Some, however, dislike the KFB because it leaves a bar in the front of the work like a purl stitch. But did you know there's a similar increase that does not leave that bar?
No, not until I read the final category of increases in Knitting Bag of Tricks, which is increases that are lifted from the row below, then worked. The increase you're alluding to is the knit front slip stitch, which is KFS for short. It is worked over 2 rows and has a similar appearance to the KFB without the bar. There is also a purl front slip stitch, PFS for short, that works in a similar manner, and it blends in beautifully with the purl side. Left and right lifted increases were also discussed and included in swatch 6.
I like how Chapter 5 in the original Knitting Bag of Tricks book ends with suggestions on how one might choose which increases to use. There's a great discussion on how certain increases work better on the front or the back of the work and how substituting these can be helpful if you forget to increase on the previous size. That would be me.
Yeah, that was good information. Well, I think this is a good place to wrap things up. Thanks for listening to our latest discussion. We'll be back to discuss Lesson 6, Pesky Problems and Secret Solutions. Bye.
Bye.